Hi, good morning. My name is Rohit Jaipuria, and my primary area of focus within SAP is the governance, risk, and compliance solutions. That is a large portfolio now, and over the next 30 minutes, I will take you through what that portfolio is all about. And I'll also focus a bit more on the more important solutions that we have from that particular portfolio, right? Let's start with what the entire solution portfolio is all about, right? Essentially, most of the customers today, right, still believe that the only offering that SAP has within the GRC area is mainly around the SAP access control, but that is really not the case, right? We have a huge portfolio from the GRC bag, right? Close to 20 different applications which are purpose built for different areas of the governance, risk management, as well as compliance related requirements. So we have broadly classified them or grouped them under 4 different areas. The first one is around enterprise risk and compliance. Now that is where you have all the solutions from, say, from a process compliance point of view. So some of the organizations have, for example, a Sarbanes-Oxley regulatory requirement. At the same time, as per Indian Companies Act, of course, we have also got the IFCs, or the internal financial controls, right? You can put in place the controls which are required from a process point of view, right? Now, these could be the statutory or the regulatory compliance requirements, or these could also be internal control requirements. For example, every purchase order which is more than a certain amount has to be physically signed by 2 people, right? So these kind of controls also is something that can very well, be configured into the system, and we can keep on doing the regular control assessment as well. So right from there to, say, an enterprise-wide risk management. So we have an ERM tool or an enterprise risk management tool as well. So wherein you have your entire risk registers, and you also have all the different drivers of risk, including what could be the certain impacts of a particular risk. We also have, what is the probability of a particular risk occurring, as well as what is the kind of effects, obviously, that it can have, or from the impact point of view. So these could also be, say, quantitative impacts like financial impact, or these could also be softer impacts like, for example, if you are witnessing a very high level of employee attrition, then maybe it is bad for the for the reputation of the organization as well. So we could very well model all of these risks in the risk management solution. We also have SAP Audit Management, which can help you to streamline the entire audit process, right? So what are the areas that you will audit, having the audit universe, all the different audit objects also within that. And also we can help you to design different audit programs, including the scheduling and the staffing of the audit as well. So how frequently will you audit, which area, how big will the team be, what are the kind of artifacts, etc., that they will generate, including things like, various questionnaires, etc. All of that is something that can be streamlined. We also have business integrity screening, which is essentially a fraud detection tool as well. So it is essentially aimed at the internal auditors of the organization, right? So they would prefer, a free flow analytical kind of tool. So they can write their own queries and all as well on data which might be coming in from SAP as well as non-SAP sources. So that's in terms of enterprise risk and compliance. The second pillar is around the entire user life cycle. So right from the time a person joins the organization, right, what are the different kinds of systems that this person should have access to? How should they go about logging into those systems, including things like, if you want to have, say, a 2-factor authentication with an additional passcode being delivered to you either via email or via an SMS, etc. Like we all do shopping on various e-commerce websites and all as well, right? So you get an OTP from your bank, right? So those kind of things is something that we can very well do, even for people wanting to log into your enterprise applications, right? So including things like single sign-on, etc. Right? So right from the time a person joins the organization, what are the systems he or she should have access to? How should they go about logging onto those systems? Once inside the system, what are the different roles and responsibilities that they should have authorization for? Right. So that is mainly from the SAP access control point of view. Right. So that's the entire segregation of duties engine as well. So we have on-prem offerings as well as cloud-based offerings. We do have a SaaS-based mechanism as well, so which you can do on subscription as well, right? The possibilities are actually quite limitless in terms of how you want to be able to consume these kind of capabilities. The third area, which is cybersecurity, data protection, and privacy, that is a super critical area now. And with increased regulatory compliance requirements, that is becoming more and more important, right? Worldwide, organizations which have a multi-country presence, they are already governed by a lot of data privacy and data protection laws. So these could be like GDPR, for example, within the European Union, or even the India Personal Data Protection Bill, which should probably be out this year. It has already been passed by the Parliament in concept. Had it not been for the pandemic, this bill would already have been out. So going forward, we will have a lot of restrictions in terms of how freely data can be gathered, who has access to what data, especially from a PII data or a personally identifiable information point of view. So we have very robust offerings in the area of cybersecurity, data protection, and privacy, including things like being able to generate various kinds of alerts in case there are any kind of internal or external threats that the system can perceive, right? So we have a SEAM system, which is a securities incidents and events monitoring system, only for your SAP application exclusively, right? These could be as simple alerting mechanisms, like for example, if anybody has been granted authorization for SAP all, then maybe the IT head and maybe the internal audit guys, etc., should be sounded off on that, right? It could be something as simple as that to something which is highly more complex as well, including things like hacking attacks, or in terms of brute force attacks, multiple failed logon attempts, or if somebody is executing a very sensitive transaction, or if anything any data gets downloaded and all as well, right? So we have SAP enterprise threat detection and SAP privacy governance in that area. Given that a lot of organizations now are increasingly going for cloud adoption as well, we have got specific capabilities even on the hyperscalers, which is be it AWS, be it Google Cloud Platform, be it Microsoft Azure, etc. So being able to give you transparency in terms of where the data resides, which data center, and who are the people who are accessing that data, right from giving you transparency to giving you the complete control over encryption and decryption of this data as well. So we also have a key management service. We work with all the hyperscalers. We have got technological tie-ups with that. We can also help you to control what is the level of access that even the cloud service providers have over your data, right? So a lot of capability around that as well. The fourth area, of course, has to do with your global trade. May not be very relevant given this audience today. However, I'll probably just take half a minute to talk about that. We do have solutions for international trade, including things like foreign trade zone management, including licensing around export and import as well. Also, in terms of business partner screening, so if say, for example, you want to screen your entire business partners in terms of your vendors and your customers, as well as your employees against any kind of pre-populated lists. Now, these can be lists, say, for example, from Interpol, etc. Right? Even the United Nations produces, these kind of lists. So you want to ensure that you are not dealing with, say, an organization or a party which is on a particular blacklist, or against which there have been any kind of sanctions. You can do all of that screening as well. So that's in terms of the entire footprint of the governance, risk, compliance, as well as security solutions. Now, what we thought is we will just do a double click into two of the most popular and two of the most important solutions within the entire GRC portfolio, which is SAP Access Control as well as SAP Process Control. I have just put those two in bold. Now, I do understand that some of you will already be on your journey with SAP GRC, right? Many of you might already have access control in place, because that's where most organizations usually start their journey with, right? However, for the sake of those who are not really on that, I'll put up a few slides on access control, and then we'll also look what SAP Process Control can add value to your business, right? Uh, Let me take a pause here, and if there are any questions on the chat as far as the GRC portfolio is concerned, I would request the moderator to please call those out. Otherwise, we'll just look at what access control and process control are all about.
There are no questions, Rohit. We can go ahead with the access control and process control.
Okay, thank you very much, Sudhakar sir. So now, when you are talking about access control, we are essentially talking about the segregation of duties mechanism. Now, as most of you would be aware, this is also one of the first areas of a statutory audit program as well. So whenever your auditors come in, they usually start off, seeing whether you have a segregation of duties mechanism in place. So be it your ITGC audits, be it any other kind of audits and all as well. So we help you to streamline the entire segregation of duties mechanism. So there are 5 basic capabilities that you get along with SAP Access Control. The first one is in terms of the risk analysis. So we give you a pre-built rule set which focuses on more than 150,000 combinations, right? So what this rule set is and at what level of detail is, I will come to in the subsequent slide. But we give you a pre-built rule set with all the segregation of duties combinations, right? And that's the rule set, that you can extend, and you can also you can modify basis any kind of customization that you would have done at your SAP ERP layer. So that's the risk analysis piece. The second one is, in terms of the provisioning of the user. So we help you to streamline the end-to-end mechanism of, how users get access to your SAP systems and how they get provisioned also. So including a self-service where people can themselves request for certain roles and certain authorizations with all the pre-built inbuilt workflow mechanism as well for the approvals, right? And if there have to be any kind of mitigation rules attached, we can do that as well. And then the system automatically takes care of doing the backend provisioning to your core systems as well. So there is no manual intervention. We don't want you to just log into SU01, for example, and do these authorizations and these role granting on a manual basis. That is all taken care of by the system itself. That's the second set of capabilities which is there. The third one is also in terms of maintenance of the roles. So we can help you to make sure that the roles that you have designed are inherently free of any kind of segregation of duties violations, because that is one of the very important areas. So people will come in and request for a role, and if that role itself has a combination of authorizations which has a segregation of duties violation, then obviously they will be violating the segregation of duties framework as well. So helping you to design clean rules is also something that we can do along with SAP Access Control. The fourth area is in terms of the certification of the authorizations. So many a time we come across situations that the call of the business is such that you have to grant authorizations which might be conflicting the segregation of duties philosophy, right? So now there can be temporary authorizations also which you need to grant, right? So on a periodic basis, for example, the head of the department can get a report saying, okay, these are all the employees in your department, these are all of the people who report to you, these are the authorizations they have, and if any of those employees within the department actually have say conflicting authorizations, then the head of the department can give his or her approval, or can also suggest changes, right? So on a periodic basis, being able to ensure that the existing authorizations are valid, that is also something that we give you the capability for. Now that is very important, because many a time what happens is, if you have got people who are getting transferred or promoted, many a time, they are granted extra authorization, but the existing authorizations are not taken away, because most of the times there is a handover period, so people continue to enjoy the authorizations that they had earlier, and they don't get taken away in due course of time. So that by itself can actually create a lot of segregation of duties issues as well. So a periodic certification is something that is again very important. And then of course, one of the more important areas also is in terms of the super user access or the firefighter access, right? We help you manage those kind of accesses also, purely from the system point of view itself. And we also give you extended logging and auditing capabilities. So there is a lot of inbuilt logs in terms of the data access log or the data modification log as well. So you have complete visibility in terms of who logged in, say, as a firefighter, what are the what are the transactions they ran, what are the values they changed, etc. as well. So all the super user access or firefighter access, and with extensive logging, is all part of the solution itself. Now let me just put up a couple of slides on what the pre-built rule set is all about. So the pre-built rule set is available for different versions of SAP ERPs as well. So if you're on ECC or if you are on S4 already, right, the rule sets are available for all the different versions. And we also cover all the different business processes. So be it order to cash, be it procure to pay, be it finance, etc. And within those, then we have got multiple risks. So say for example, within procure to pay process, you could have a risk of fraudulent payments, and that might be if the person has got the authorization to do vendor master maintenance as well as release payments. So then somebody can just change the vendor bank account details and release the payments as well, right? So those kind of situations is something that we have already covered out of the box. We go down to the actions as well as the permission level. So if a person who is processing, say, vendor payments, if he or she has the authorization to view the vendor bank account details and release payments, that is not a segregation of duties violation. However, if that person can also change or modify vendor bank account details and release payments, then it is a segregation of duties violation. So we go down to the permission level as well. And as I said earlier, it is completely extendable and and completely modifiable as well. So the rule set, the pre-built rule set is the IP that we give you along with the system. We also do it for the database as well. So for SAP HANA database, right? So for the DBAs as well, there can be certain SOD conflicting authorizations. We cover that as well. We give you the root cause analysis so that you can make the changes as well. A bit more around the end-to-end workflow based request and the provisioning framework as well. So there can be various triggers where a request comes in from. Okay, so these can be on the basis of triggers from HR systems. These could be from identity management systems, or people can themselves place a request for a role, or also on the basis of somebody else within the same department. Some larger PSUs also have dedicated help desks as well. So wherein people can send an email, and then the help desk raises the request on their behalf. So there are various ways that an access request can come in. Once the request is submitted, then the risk analysis is done by the system. In case there are certain segregation of duties violations which have been encountered, then workflow automatically gets triggered to the right set of people. This can go to multiple people as well. So if you want the head of the department, as well as say the IT department, or maybe the internal audit department, the chief risk officer, etc. Right? There can be an MSMP workflow which gets triggered, a multi-stage, multi-path workflow. Once the approvals have been obtained, then even the provisioning is something that can be done automatically, right? So that's in terms of how the entire request is handled. I was also talking about the role definition and maintenance. So the entire role design also can have the entire segregation of duties mechanism built in, right? Once that is done, I will just navigate to some of the other important areas as well. So that is in terms of the super user access that I was talking about. So if you see on the screenshot in front of you, for all the system emergency users or the firefighters, etc., all of these reports are pre-built. So in terms of transaction logs, change logs, audit logs, system log, etc., all of those are pre-built log based reports which are available, and basis the requirement, the users can run these logs at any point in time and see what is it that the people did. What we have also done is, for those of you who are on a slightly older version of access control, if you have not yet moved to SAP Access Control 12.0, we also have persona based navigation now along with Fiori tiles. So you can see access control administrator, for example, will have access to a lot of different processes from the entire management point of view. If you look at the employees, then of course they have a far smaller set of processes also, so they can maintain their profiles. For example, if they have placed an access request, they can also keep on monitoring what is the status of that. Employees can themselves do a reset password as well. So that's one of the core capabilities with SAP Access Control, right? Plus, whatever is most important from an end user point of view. So we have persona based navigation as well as the authorizations. From a reporting point of view, there is a lot of reporting and dashboarding, which comes with SAP Access Control, including how many requests have been there, at what stage have been there, if there are any kind of segregation of duties violations, then which are the more critical ones, for example. So in terms of tabular reports, alerts, also in terms of charts, all of that is something that is straight out of the box with SAP Access Control. So one of the most important applications in the entire portfolio. In the interest of time, I will just quickly move to SAP Process Control as well. Now, SAP Process Control is your compliance engine from a process compliance point of view. So when you're talking about, say, the procure to pay process, or when you talk about the order to cash process, again, you can have various controls. As I was saying earlier, this can be from the point of view of regulatory or statutory compliance, or this could also have to do with internal initiatives, right? So it all starts with the documentation. So what are the processes and sub processes in which you would want to have controls, right? So you design the controls as well. You see how many of these controls can be automated, how many of these need to be manual as well. So there is a lot of capability around all of that. So it all starts with the documentation. This is where you have your entire RCMs as well, or your risk and control matrix, right? I'm sure most of you would already be having these on paper. At least we can help you to streamline all of these, by automating these controls that you have. So it all starts with the documentation. Obviously, we don't stop with just the documentation, because we don't want these controls to just sit on a folder on somebody's desk, right? So we help you to do the planning of all of these control assessments as well. Some of these controls you might want to run continuously. Some of these you might want to schedule to maybe end of day, or maybe even weekly, monthly, quarterly, at whatever frequency you feel these controls should run, so we can plan for them. Now these could be automated controls and automated control test procedures as well, or these could be manual also, right? So a very simple example could be, say, for example, one of the controls is that all the TDS that has been deducted has to be deposited into the government treasury within the stipulated time frame, right? So you have a control owner as well. So every month he or she logs on to the system and just needs to confirm whether this has happened or not, yes or no. If required, they can also just take a screen capture of the payment challan and make an addition, right? So that's how we can help you to streamline all of the testing of these controls as well. A typical organization could have dozens or maybe even hundreds of controls, right? So we can help you to streamline all of that. So that's in terms of the testing of the controls as well. And then the actual running of the controls, we give you full-fledged exception monitoring capabilities. So whenever a control failure is witnessed, right, an automated alert gets generated and it gets sent to the right set of people for further investigation. So the entire alert management capability is also part of the SAP Process Control offering. We also have whistleblower mechanisms wherein people can just go and report an ad hoc issue as well if they feel that any kind of controls are not being followed. So that's from the performance and monitoring point of view. Evaluation, right? And also even with the compliance engine, you get a lot of inbuilt reporting capability as well. What I'll do is I'll also put up a couple of slides on the most important areas again. Now, to give you a quick example, if I were to look at, say procure to pay, so there could be controls around configuration. There could be controls around the way a transaction should move through the procure to pay process. And there could also be controls around the master data also, right? So this is a very, very simple library of controls which are there. All of these controls is something that you can actually configure within your SAP process control system, right? So there could be various levels of controls, and all of these controls, how frequently do we go about testing them? If there have been any kind of exceptions or any kind of control failures, then who should the alert go to, and what is the kind of analysis, etc., that they need to do. All of that is something which is pre-built into the system itself. So that's a simple workflow as well. So in terms of how the process works, so technically we can also extend compliance to non-SAP with certain adapters. We have partners who help us work with those kind of adapters. For SAP, we also give you a lot of pre-built content. So there are close to 75 controls which are shipped out of the box as well across various business processes, right? So we have the system, and then we have got all of the different logics, and we can just map them to the controls. And then also what should be the trigger. So you can either do a schedule based mass triggering, or you can also do an online detection as well, as far as all of your controls are concerned, of course. And as a last step, in terms of the reporting and dashboarding, all of that is built into the system itself, right? So typically people would like to do a lot of querying and all as well. So all of that is something that's possible with SAP Process Control. There are also certain automated controls which we shift out of the box, as I mentioned, right? In terms of the control assessments, as I mentioned, so there could be an automated assessment mechanism, or we can also have, say, the self-assessments, the manual self-assessments also, wherein on a regular basis, people get a small questionnaire to which they need to reply. In case they need to make any kind of submissions or any kind of attachments, etc., they can do that as well, right? So right from something very simplistic, is the control worded properly, have all the corresponding regulatory requirements being taken care of, etc., etc. Also just rank or rate the operating effectiveness of these controls, etc. So from that point of view, right up to for the very lightweight control owners, you want to just send them out a small questionnaire by email on a regular basis, we can do that as well. So it's not like the control owners need to actually log into the system every now and then. We can very well just send them an offline questionnaire wherein they can provide their views, their their comments, their answers, etc., and then the system just collates all of those responses as well. So a lot of flexibility in terms of how these controls also get executed. Another important area was also around once an issue has been encountered, right? So this could be the automatically generated alerts from the system, or these could also be in terms of the findings of the manual tests and assessments, or as I was saying, even the whistleblower mechanism. So somebody can go and just report an ad hoc issue as well. So right from the time the issue gets reported, now to the entire workflow based resolution as well, including things like the kappa mechanism, so the corrective and preventive actions as well. So in case newer controls need to be configured, or in case testing needs to be done more exhaustively or more frequently, etc. So whatever might be the preventive actions as well, that is something that can all be documented and maintained by the system itself, right up to the time that the issue gets closed. So we give you the end-to-end issue resolution mechanism as well. Another thing is a very important part of the system is also in terms of policy management. So we also help you to take care of the entire policy distribution and acknowledgement mechanism. So every organization has various policies. These could be financial accounting policies. These could be, say, these could be the procurement related policies. These could be travel related policies. These could also be, say, IT security related policies. So something as simple as don't leave your username and password on a post-it on your desktop, or don't share your user IDs and passwords. Always lock your workstation before you get up, right? Right from there till all the backup etc related set of policies as well, right? So these policies can be distributed through the system, and you can also attach small questionnaires also to ensure that people have not just received the policy, but also that they have read and understood the policy. So for example, a very simple set of questions is, have you received, read and understood the policy? Answer is yes or no. Do you agree to abide? Do you have any suggestions for improvement of the policy, etc.? So completely configurable in terms of the different questions that you might want to have as far as the policy acknowledgement set of activities is concerned, right? Having said that, again, in terms of the reporting and dashboarding, a lot of pre-built reports again. So right from the control effectiveness test to what are the organizations in testing, what are the test due dates, etc., due date status. If any kind of issues or violations or control failures have been witnessed, we can always do the prioritization and ranking of these alerts as well. So not every control failure has the same level of criticality or importance, right? So we can very well rank them in terms of priorities or severities as well. So all of these are pre-built. This is just a small sample of the kind of dashboarding and reporting capabilities that you get out of the box. Of course, newer reports can also be generated, no issues on that. So that's what I had for you today from the entire GRC point of view. What I'll do is I'll just put up the overall GRC portfolio footprint again, and if there are any questions, more than happy to take them up. Would request the participants to also make a note if they would like to explore any other area within the GRC and security portfolio. We can take that one-on-one as well, of course. Any questions? May I please request the moderator? Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Rohit. We have one question from Mr. Virendra Kumar. He is asking whether new role assignment required any manual intervention. I think this is from access control point of view. Any manual intervention is required from basis for new role assignment or a functional team, or it is fully automatic. If it is fully automatic, then how the request with segregation of duties is handled?
Sure. So
this is the question.
Sure. Thank you, Sudhakar. This is something which is fully automated. So either people can request for roles for themselves. Let me just put up the slide on that. So there are various ways that a request can reach the system, right? So I can either request a role for myself, or also for somebody else in my department of some if there's a new joinee or if there's been a transfer, etc. in my department, right? So there are various ways that the request can come in. Increasingly nowadays, people are also demanding of us that we have an HR system based trigger. So you have different roles, you have different positions in your HR systems, and you can tag employees to those different positions as well. The positions also have a role tagged to a particular position, right? So what are the systems and what are the authorizations, etc., that you have? Once the request has come into the system, then it is by default routed to GRC access control for the risk analysis. And the entire risk analysis is done against the rule set that we saw a few slides back. And once any kind of SOD violations have been found, then a mitigation exception workflow gets automatically triggered. And if the request gets approved, then the entire provisioning to the backend SAP system is also something that is taken care of by the system itself. Now, one word over here in terms of the mitigation exception workflow. Let me give you an example of what can be a mitigation rule. Let us say, for example, we are talking about a small branch office, and the call of the business is that, okay, I have got just one small commercial officer, right? Even he or she may not be a full-time employee, right? It might be a salesperson who is doubling up, say, as the commercial officer, right? So he or she would have the authorizations to raise, say, a purchase order and also approve a purchase order in the system, right? So by default, this is an SOD violation. But you're not going to recruit more people just so that you are clean of any kind of segregation of duties. In these kind of situations, what the approver can do is they can assign a mitigation rule. The mitigation rule could be, for example, that every purchase order more than a certain amount gets physically signed. So a person by himself or herself cannot really engage in any kind of activity that can go against the interests of the organization. So the request will get approved, that the person will get the authorization to raise a purchase order as well as approve or release that purchase order. However, the purchase orders above a certain amount would be physically signed by two people. With your process compliance engine, which is SAP Process Control, that becomes a control that gets regularly monitored then. And you can choose how frequently you want to assess that control. So let's say every month you want to make sure that that control is working properly. So you have an auditor, or you have the control owner who takes a list from the system of all the purchase orders above that particular amount, and then physically goes and checks whether the purchase orders have been signed or not. So that's how even the mitigation can take place. So to answer your question, the end-to-end, right from the request submission till the provisioning, that is all completely automated. Also, any kind of mitigations which have been there can be controlled and can be assessed on a regular basis. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks a lot, Rohit. I think that answers the question. In the interest of time, we will request Amit to move forward to the next session. Thanks a lot, Rohit, for your session.
Thank you so much.